5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Wednesday morning. Do you know, maybe about 2 years ago, Robin and I decided to just venture into something different. We had been involved with music for a long, long time, as most of you know. And we decided to pick up two different instruments, the accordion and mandolin. And of course, I had a little bit, I could cheat because I had the accordion as a background instrument as a child. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is that it opened up some doors for us. It's kind of cool and very enjoyable. And we somehow found a niche in a lot of the songs that were considered French music. Because the accordion has that French musette sound in it, and the mandolin seems to lend itself well to that style. So we've got, a few gigs. They're not always paid gigs. I'm not trying to make it seem like we're making money with it, but we go to these coffee houses and they have a French theme. They'll build an Eiffel Tower, and they'll have some of the typical French pastries that you would see. And the one that we learned about was macarons. They look like little hamburgers. And they're not macaroons. They're something different. They're really good. But
they're delicious.
And they're not cheap.
No.
But anyway, so we fell in love with this whole thing over the past 2 years doing these. And so I've kind of always wanted to go to Paris. Mm-hmm. But ever since we started doing this, Robin, I've really said, gosh, I really want to go visit Paris. I really want to make a plan it's on my bucket list, to go over there. And then it must have been around August or so, we got an invitation to speak to our next guest, and he wrote a book, or published a book. It's a photography book. It's called The Glow of Paris. So the bridges of Paris at night, and this is a beautiful book, and he does a really wonderful job with black and white imagery. He is Gary Zuercher. I'm going to ask him if I'm saying his name right in a second. He is a professional photographer. He provides photography for companies and advertising agencies that need commercial images for publications, like advertising, brochures, etc., right? Mm-hmm. And he's on the phone to talk to us about that book. It's a really beautiful book. You would consider it a coffee table book. The Glow of Paris. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I'm pretty good. Where are you calling from?
Washington, D.C.
Okay, it sounds like there's a delay between the time we hear you and the time you probably say it, so I apologize for that. It might cause a little confusion, and if it sounds like we're talking over you, that's the reason. We don't intend to do that. Well, thank you for being on the air with us. Am I saying your name right, Zuercher?
Yeah, that's correct. It's Zuercher.
Okay. Do you spend a lot of time in Paris?
Actually, I live there half the time with my wife, who's French. We spend half the time there and half the time in Washington, D.C. So I'm quite familiar with the city, and I love the city.
Well, we fell in love with your book.
Yes.
And as you probably heard in the intro, we've just been... Suddenly we're involved in this whole music culture and some of the food. And I don't know, I think we fell in love with... We haven't been there yet, but we fell in love with Paris.
Well, you'll have to go there because I think you'll probably fall even further in love once you go there and experience the city and see the bridges too while you're there.
And speaking of the bridges, which of course is the point of the book, in the Woody Allen movie with Owen Wilson, the Midnight in Paris, there was that one scene toward the end of the movie where he's standing on this bridge. And I'm guessing it's one of the bridges in the book. Mm-hmm. And it's raining, and it's just a beautiful way for the movie to end. But you sort of see this bridge at nighttime in that film.
It's gorgeous.
And that's what you did. You specialized in nighttime shots of the bridges.
Yeah, that's right. I think that scene with Owen Wilson took place on the Pont Neuf. And interestingly, Pont Neuf means new bridge, and it's the oldest bridge in Paris, having been built in 1607.
Is that right? Wow. And that is in the book, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, I think there's, first of all, there's 35 bridges that cross the Seine in Paris. There's black and white photos of every one of them. But some bridges, there are more photos than others, and I think there's 5 or 6 photos of the Pont Neuf in the book. But in addition to all the photos which you've mentioned, there's a really rich history behind all of these bridges. And having finished the photography of the project, I undertook to research the history and include that in the book too. Actually, the research took 1 year, and the photography took 5 years. So that's how the book came together.
You have an extremely unique perspective on the on each of the bridges. They're not all photographed from the same perspective.
That was a real challenge. You just have to find the point of view that really takes in the best ability, or let's say the best presentation of each bridge. So I would go out during the day and I'd look at the various points of view, and then I would be more prepared at night when I took the pictures. But I would say that looking at the bridges in the day is much different than seeing what they look like at night in the glow of the nighttime light.
1 week ago, on Friday, we had the terrible news out of Paris. I'm sure it affected you greatly. Can you just comment on that a little bit, and what were your thoughts last week?
Sure. My wife and I returned from Paris last week, just before the events that took place. Paris is generally a very, very safe city. I would rather go out in Paris at night than many, many other cities in this country and around
like Washington,
the
D.C.?
But these events, well, I didn't want to say that, but these events were just terrible, and they created such a sorrow and sadness, and the effect is going to be in the daily lives of the people of Paris and the cities of France, which will affect their living, their daily activities for a long time to come. It's a shame. It shouldn't have happened. And I can't understand people who have the mentality of killing.
Absolutely, and I didn't want to take you down that way, but I didn't want to not mention that either. I wanted to make sure we got that in there. The book came with us to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Robin and I were part of a convention up there, October 1st through the 4th. And our whole thing was to show a French cafe, to provide music for a French cafe, and we had to bring props. So, so your book was one of the props, and this was for students of the different colleges in the Southeast, and they were all stopping by, and I think there's a love affair with Paris in general. So I'm guessing that the book. How long has the book been out? It seems like the kind of book that definitely will be embraced.
Yeah, it came out in January, and it's what some people call an evergreen book. A lot of books come out, and even some books come out, and by the time they come out, the subject of the book is passé. But with the Bridges of Paris, they've been here since before the birth of Christ, so people say the book will be around and popular for quite a long time.
One of the most fascinating things about the architecture of all of the bridges is that the bridges were built before you had all of this new kind of constructive materials, tools, lifts, things like that. I mean, they were actually built by hand, and that to me is very amazing when we read the history.
It is, and the first bridges some of them were stone and some of them were wood, and the thinking during part of the time when they were first built was that they built homes and buildings on top of the bridges, and the thinking was that the weight of the homes and the buildings would be a stable factor. It would stabilize the bridges. Of course, that was proved wrong later on. But the bridges were knocked down by ice flows. They burned down. They were hit by boats. The first bridges were described by Julius Caesar in 52 B.C. in his Chronicles of the Gallic War, and the oldest that's standing is the Pont Neuf, the one that you mentioned in midnight in Paris, and it was built in 1607. The newest was built in 2006, and the newest one is the first one in more than 2,000 years of the history of the bridges of Paris to be named for a woman. So it's called the Passerelle Simone de Beauvoir, and it celebrates this woman's history and
no, really.
For a woman's name.
Do they all the bridges in the book spanning water?
Yes, all of them do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so when something spans water and you have lights on it, then nighttime there's something romantic about seeing lights reflecting in water. In the early days, I don't know, the 1600s, I'm guessing they had flames or what, kerosene lanterns or something on the bridge?
You know, I can't tell you. Unfortunately, I wasn't around at that time, but I think they probably used torches and fire and so forth. But, I don't think the lighting really came into really strong being until the late 1800s, and then the lighting has emerged over a period up till today's date. But the lighting, you mentioned what the water looks like and the reflection. A lot of the photographs have long exposures, and when you have a long exposure, the water turns into something that looks like silk, and then having the light on it really provides a very luminous quality to the photograph.
Oh, the secret of the photography just got revealed a little bit. They are really beautiful pictures. The the question I wanted to ask you is about you. I wanted to, if we could peek inside you a little bit, because okay, so here's my question that will do that. I think, where were you when the idea happened? Were you looking at those lights one night and you said, "Gosh, that is so beautiful"? Was there a romantic element to it, or are you more into the technical, the construction, the history, and that sort of thing?
Well, where was I? The whole thing came as a result of a mistake. I was shooting various subjects one night in Paris, and I decided to take a picture of the Alexander III Bridge. I did, and I accidentally greatly overexposed the shot. As soon as I'd taken it, I knew I'd messed it up. So in trying to save it, I underdeveloped it. And by the way, I shot all of this on film in black and white.
Oh, okay.
I tried to underdevelop it. And save the photo, and I did. Then in printing the photograph, I ended up with a photo that just took my breath away. It was luminous. It glowed. It almost knocked me off my feet. Looking at it, I thought, wow, I think I would just like to do the same type of thing for every one of these 35 bridges. So that's how it started. I figured it would take a year. That was the second mistake. It took 5 years. And then there was a year of research into the history of the bridges to supplement the photographs in the book.
Wow.
That's kind of how it all came about.
Wow, we just don't realize how much work goes into these books. Wow. Look, can I ask you to hang on there? We have to take a little break and listen to the weather forecast and I think one commercial, and then we'll be back, okay? So it's only 1 minute break. We'll be right back. Gary Zuercher has a wonderful book. It is called The Glow of Paris. This is a beautiful photograph book with lots of information as well. It's not just photographs. We'll be right back to continue our conversation with Gary Zuercher after the break. This is WOCA.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, clouds, some sun, and warm with a shower in spots and a high of 83 to 87. Mostly cloudy, warm and humid tonight, though 71 to 75. For tomorrow, mostly cloudy, warm and humid with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm by afternoon, the high 81 to 85. For Friday, partly sunny, still a chance of a shower, high 79 to 83. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
You spend the season making the holidays brighter for everyone on your list. This year, how about doing the same for yourself? Let PackMail take care of all your holiday packing and shipping, so you can enjoy a little peace and joy too. Just one stop packs up and ships out all your holiday joy to the world, delivering on time and intact. Now how's that for wrapping up your holiday hassles? Stop by PackMail today, 303 Southeast 17th Street in Churchill Square, Ocala.
All right, 19 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Gary Zuercher on the phone in Washington, D.C., but we're not talking about D.C. We're talking about the Paris. The Glow of Paris is the title of his book. We had Gary booked, I believe, before the end of September, and so we're so happy to have him on. We're looking forward to having him on. We fell in love with the book, and as you probably know, we've explained this a few times on the air, Robert and I have gotten into this music that is very Parisian, I guess you would say. Gary, you spent half the year in Paris. Is the climate there similar to what it would be like in D.C.?
It is a bit. Well, it is and it isn't. During the summer, D.C. can be a real hothouse with the humidity. Paris doesn't have that kind of humidity, and in the winter it doesn't get quite as cold. It's quite temperate. If it snows in Paris in the winter, the snow is gone by the next day. So it's a little bit like Washington and a little bit unlike Washington, but it's pleasant weather.
You know where I've been? I've been to Quebec. Is it anything like Quebec? The city of Quebec.
Yes, because there's so much French language in Quebec.
Yeah.
And there's Montreal and Quebec City, and the concept of the city is a bit the same. However, the architecture is totally different. The architecture of Paris is things that were built and designed as in the 1700s and the 1800s. And in those years, Quebec was more of a frontier city. So Paris has a much longer, richer history than Quebec. But they're, it's both nice areas.
Did your love of architecture help you when you pioneered the development of the water park industry? Because those structures, even though they're so not as magnificent as the bridges in Paris and centuries ago, you still had to have the engineering and the architecture flair to do it right, to have the safety.
Yeah, that's right, and it's interesting that you ask that, because one of the early wave action pools that we installed was right there in Ocala at Silver Springs when they built a water park.
Wow!
So Ocala has kind of has a soft spot in my heart. We developed the water park industry along with George Millay, who was the founder of SeaWorld, and he built the Wet and Wild chain of water parks. And that was really the onset of the water park.
Wow, who knew there was
and it grew from there, and it took it.
Wow.
Yeah, who knew we had a connection? That was that was one of those moments right there I warned you about, me talking over you because I thought you were done. I apologize. Wow, who knew there was a connection there, right? There's no bridges in Ocala. Well, maybe one that goes over water.
No, but he was a water park founder.
Oh, I know. But I'm just saying you couldn't do that kind of a book here. There's no real
Sharp's Ferry Bridge, but that's
yeah. I don't know if that would work.
That's 6 car lengths long, so it wouldn't be of the caliber of the bridges in Paris.
Is the water? The water looks beautiful in the photographs. In photographs of the East River in New York, it always looks beautiful too. But I know better. Is it the same way in Paris? Is the water clean or not?
The water probably is cleaner now than it used to be. And in the olden days, people used it as their trash bin. They threw everything into it, threw crap in it. Sewage was in it. They don't allow that today, and there's a more there's a better idea of how to treat the nature around you, and so the water's cleaner today. But still, you get the refuse from the boats that go by and so forth. It's not. Let's say that people don't swim in it, but it's much cleaner than it used to be.
Since you're a native of Paris, are there any things specific about the bridges that are unique, only that the locals know about and treasure because they don't want to share it with visitors?
In fact, I think the opposite of that is true. What I found in this project is how little the Parisians know about their bridges, and how little they know about how they look at night. Parisians who have bought the book are astounded by what the bridges look like at night. So I think it's one of those cases where you can't see the forest for the trees. And, I'm like that in Washington. There's great things to see in Washington, and I'm a big dummy about what all goes on here.
Well, that is really true, though. I mean, we drive over bridges. I walk. I'm from New York originally. I never walked over the Brooklyn Bridge until I was away from it for a long time. And I said to Robin one time, I've never walked over that bridge. I've been over it 100,000 times or whatever, but I've never walked it. And you see pictures of people. It looks so beautiful. So one day we went up there and said, let's just walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah, it was. I think that's probably true for a lot of us.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
So have you started a theme for yourself? Will there be more Paris books or more Bridges books, like Bridges from Washington or something?
No, I've started shooting some other bridges in Europe, and I was thinking, well, I'm in the process of actually compiling photographs and doing a project called the Great Bridges of Europe at night. There's some beautiful bridges in Spain, and I shot recently in Barcelona. They're bridges built by a famous architect named Santiago Calatrava, and they are very, very modern and good-looking. And in this project, I'll probably be shooting. Well, I'm going to be shooting in Seville, Spain, in the upcoming months, and then throughout Central Europe and in Scandinavia, it'll be a mixture of very old bridges and very new bridges and bridges that have something of interest in them. You know, I would take just a moment. You were talking about not seeing the bridges, and in the prologue, in the epigraph of the book, I quoted an author from something she said quite a long time ago. She said, "They are the extension of the streets, the hyphen between the two riverbanks. We cross them on foot, by car, by metro. We see them without looking at them, and that's a shame." That really says it, I think.
When you're filming as a cameraman and then you're also filming as a still photographer, do you incorporate the same creativity as you do with your still photographs in camera work, or is that a totally different animal?
That's a totally different animal, and my camera work on film video is much more limited than the work I've done on still photography. I produced 16 commercial films, which were product promotional films, but and I did a lot of commercial photography for companies and advertising agencies. But the stuff that I'm doing on the bridges and things like that I do for the love of the beauty of the art.
You give them a very unique personality. They each have their own personality, and it really shows in your photographs.
Yeah, they really do, and the history is interesting. There's all kinds of cute little anecdotes about things that have happened on the bridges.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's fun. Those are fun to read.
So, from a photographer's point of view, do you stay away from digital? You don't like digital? Could you do the same thing with digital that you did with the film?
With film, you have the ability of taking a photo and getting more shadow detail than in digital, in my opinion. Now, there's people who disagree with me, but I love film. Digital's fine. As a matter of fact, I use my digital camera when I'm out as a precursor. I can take a picture of the bridge. I can see what it's going to look like, and if it's not exactly what I want it to look like, I can adjust where I'm shooting from, or get closer or further away. So they each have their place.
More like an art form. It sounds like that's the way an artist might work as well, right? So your palette, your canvas is your film.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely
That's right.
Amazing.
That's right.
Well, the book is beautiful, and for the listeners who are waiting for me to give it away, I'm sorry. We already did that. So the rest of us have to go buy it. It's a beautiful, heavy coffee table book, large. I guess it's as large as a like 12 by 12, like a record album in length and width.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And of course, thicker than that.
A lot of his historical facts. I love that.
Gary, thank you for being on the air with us today. And I just love what you're doing and fell in love with your work and indirectly fell in love with Paris through your work. So thank you for being on the air today.
You're going to have to go to Paris.
Yes, we are.
Have to go.
Right now.
Right now.
I'm
Right now we have to go to a break.
Yeah,
actually.
that's right.
Gary, thank you. You're welcome back. And if you're in Ocala, stop by. We'd love to have you in the studio.
I'll do that.
All right, we'll be right back.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Moore. Gun battle in a Paris suburb overnight targeting the alleged mastermind of last week's terror attack.
As army reinforcements arrived, it was clear this was an ongoing operation, even though appeared to have stopped. The police prosecutor said 2 suspects had died, one man who was shot by police and a woman who detonated a suicide belt and killed herself. Several police were injured. One was seen limping away, supported by colleagues. Dozens of homes in the immediate vicinity were evacuated.
Ian Woods with Fox sister network Sky News. A Paris prosecutor says it's unclear if they got Abdelhamid Aboud. Former Texas Governor Rick Perry asking his state's highest criminal court to toss out felony charges of abusing his power while still governor. And 2 Air France planes flying from the U.S. to Paris, given the all-clear after anonymous threats forced them to be diverted last night. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Meet Vince. Vince hurt himself mountain biking on Saturday.
Because weekend warrior.
Because noob.
Hey.
Vince is supposed to host an important presentation, but he's not going anywhere in that cast. What should he do?
Rhetorical question.
Vince should try GoToMeeting, the simple way to host meetings online, complete with video conferencing and screen sharing. Send out a meeting link and anyone can join from any computer, tablet, or smartphone. Just takes a click.
Where do I sign up?
Visit GoToMeeting.com to start your free 30-day trial. That's GoToMeeting.com.
We've been hearing a lot about Uber lately, so we decided to get out there and talk to some actual Uber partners.
Is signing up to drive with Uber really hard?
It was simple and easy.
So if you have a phone, you can just sign up and earn money?
You just open the app whenever you feel like driving.
Sign up, drive, and you make some money.
Are the hours good?
I work less hours and I make more money.
Okay, this all sounds pretty great. What do you think I should do?
You need to sign up for Uber.
You can make serious life-changing money when you drive with Uber. Get started today at drivewithuber.com. That's drivewithuber.com.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hi, this is Becky at Hello Gorgeous Salon. Summer's almost over and fall's just around the corner. It's time to get that new look started. Let's get rid of those sun-damaged ends and faded out color and get into something rich and vibrant. Humidity is not your hair's friend. It causes your hair to capture moisture and leaves it looking dry and unhealthy. Hello Gorgeous is a certified Brazilian blowout salon.